Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going through the 2015 cybercrime movie Black Hat. In this story, a hacker group targets 3 banks at the same time and steals $74 million. Their method is so advanced and so complicated that the police have no choice but to get help from a hacker who's sitting in prison. The ending is packed with twists and suspense, so stay with it until the end. The story starts at a nuclear power station in Hong Kong. Someone hacks the control system and shuts down all the cooling fans. The station overheats, and a massive explosion follows. A lot of people are injured, and several are killed. The disaster immediately takes over the news. After that, we see Alex, the head of cybersecurity, in a meeting with his senior officers. He explains that the power plant was hacked with malware called RAT, which can be controlled remotely. But there's one major problem. That malware could not have been inserted through the internet. That means someone had to physically enter the plant and manually load it into the system. So now they have to find the person who did it. What makes it stranger is that the hackers never asked for money and never made any threats. That makes it obvious they were after something else. At the same time, in an American prison, a young man named Nick is being searched after guards find him with a phone. They question him, thinking that since he's a hacker, he might somehow be tied to the power plant attack. But when they come up with nothing, they send him back to his cell. The scene then shifts to China's cybersecurity office. Carol and Henry are talking about Alex. Alex studied at MIT, America's biggest university for computer science, and his sister Leanne also graduated from MIT in network engineering. Around the same time, Alex is at home studying the code the hackers used, and suddenly he notices something familiar. It shocks him. Later, Alex meets Leanne and tells her that when he was at MIT, he and a friend wrote a piece of hacking code together. Now these hackers are using that exact same code, so he needs her help on the case. The next day, the hackers launch another cyber attack, this time on a stock exchange. During a meeting at the cybersecurity office, Daniel explains what happened. He says 2 different kinds of code were used in the attack. First, someone pushed malware into the system, then another malware program called Payload was inserted through that same breach. Looking at the code, it seems like 2 different people wrote it. After that, Alex takes Carol and Henry into a separate room and tells them the hackers used code he wrote years ago in college. He says his friend Nick helped write it, and Nick is an extremely skilled hacker. If they want to solve this case, they need him. But neither Carol nor Henry is ready to trust that idea. The next day, Carol brings Alex another report. She tells him hackers have hit 4 banks at the same time and stolen a total of $46 million. Now they're moving into the financial markets, so they have to be stopped fast. Alex brings up Nick again. This time Carol agrees, and she sends someone to get him. But Nick has one condition. He says he'll help only if all of his sentences are pardoned and he's released from prison. The man tells him that only happens if he helps catch the hackers. Soon, Nick meets Alex and Carol outside the prison. Leanne is there too. As they get on a plane back to China, Alex shows Nick the code used in the attacks. Carol still doesn't like seeing a laptop in Nick's hands because she still doesn't trust him. But after Alex and Leanne talk to her, she lets it go. Nick studies the hacker code. After checking the stock exchange servers, he says someone had to physically enter the exchange first, then use that access point to plant another virus into the system. Hearing that, Carol asks the staff if anyone recently left the company. They find out a man named Alonzo quit not long ago and had access to the system. Nick immediately realizes Alonzo must have planted the virus. He pulls more information about Alonzo from Henry. Nick then tells them these hackers are not working like normal money thieves. Their motive is different. They need to find Alonzo as fast as possible because he's their best lead. Nick, Alex, and Leanne head to Alonzo's house, but when they get there, they find him dead. Inside the house, they discover several hacking tools. Then Nick checks Alonzo's computer and finds out he had been chatting with someone online. Using Alonzo's ID, Nick messages that person and invites him to a restaurant. At the same time, Carol and Alex meet a senior stock exchange official named Gary. Carol tells him they need full data on everyone trading through the exchange because it might reveal something useful. Gary refuses. Carol then threatens to expose things from his past, and after that he has no choice but to hand over the data. Meanwhile, Nick and Leanne wait at the restaurant for the person from the chat to show up. While they're sitting there, Leanne asks Nick why he was in prison. Nick tells her he used to steal money by hacking bank systems, but he was eventually caught and sentenced to 13 years. As they keep waiting, Nick realizes too much time has passed and nobody has shown up. That makes him suspicious. He goes to a cabin behind the restaurant and finds a monitor connected to a motion-sensing camera. Nick realizes the hackers really were there, and they've been watching him the whole time. He tries talking to the hacker through the computer, but the hacker curses at him and cuts the connection. Nick rushes back to leave with Leanne, but just then some men enter the restaurant and attack them. Nick fights back, beats them, and escapes sleeps with her. Meanwhile, Carol and Alex are reviewing the client data from the stock exchange. They discover that a total of $74 million has been transferred at the same time between 3 banks, and all 3 of those banks are in Hong Kong. Nick calls Alex and tells him the hackers used Alonzo only to figure out who they were, so chasing that lead won't help anymore. Instead, they need to follow the money transfers. That's the fastest way to reach the hackers. Alex then tells Leanne to pick Nick up and fly to Hong Kong the next morning. The next morning, Nick and Leanne get ready to leave, but that same day, another nuclear power plant suddenly explodes. After arriving, Alex and his team question the staff at the plant. They ask if the hackers demanded money or made any threats when they caused the explosion. The staff say no. Then, Leanne explains that when a machine shuts down suddenly, it stores important data on an instant memory hard drive. If they can recover that drive, it might reveal the hacker's real IP address. The staff tell them the hard drive is in the server room. The problem is that the room is still dangerously hot, so nobody can enter yet. Soon, the 3 of them meet a police officer named Tech, who has been tracking the hackers for quite a while. Tech explains that the hackers are working through 3 separate routes, but those routes never meet directly. Nick studies the pattern and realizes all 3 routes eventually come together at one point, so they decide to search that area. There they find a pickup van under police surveillance. Tech tells them a man named Kassar comes to a restaurant every day and waits for someone, but he never actually meets anybody. He just sends a message and leaves. That instantly gets Nick's attention. He thinks the hackers may be using a short-range communication device. So Nick goes into the restaurant and waits. After a long time, when nothing obvious happens, he borrows Tech's phone and checks the local Wi-Fi signals. Tracing the signal leads him to a short-range Bluetooth transmitter. When he goes back to the van, Nick explains what Kassar is doing. He isn't sending messages directly from the restaurant. He enters a code into a Bluetooth transmitter, and when his teammates pass nearby, they receive that code, and the hidden message reaches them. Carol says they should just grab Kassar and use him to get to the others, but Alex says that even if they catch him, he won't talk. It's better to keep following him. If they wait for the right moment, they'll be able to pull out everything they need. The next morning, a police unit watches Kassar from a rooftop, but Kassar notices them and escapes right away. At the same time, Alex's team is monitoring 3 banks in Hong Kong, and they see money being transferred out of all 3 at once. By tracking the transfers, they find out the money is being withdrawn at a Chinese casino. Alex splits the team into 2 groups. He takes Nick and heads toward Kassar's hideout by helicopter. When the police arrive there, Kassar is already gone. During the search, they find a hidden tunnel. One team goes into the tunnel after him. Meanwhile, Alex, Nick, and another team move to the other end of the tunnel. Inside, Kassar and his men kill several people, then come out through the exit. Alex's team opens fire immediately. During the shootout, Tech gets hit by a bullet and collapses. Even with all that, Kassar escapes again. He gets onto a speedboat and flees through the water. Later, out at sea, he hands the bags full of money over to a cargo ship. Not long after that, Alex gets a call from the Hong Kong power plant. The staff tell him the server room has cooled down enough that they can finally go in and retrieve the hard drive. Alex arrives there with his team. As they put on protective suits, one staff member warns them that the room is still extremely hot. He says they won't be able to stay inside for more than 8 minutes, so they have to move fast. Alex, Nick, and a staff member enter the room together, but the second they step inside, the staff member passes out from the heat. Nick tells Alex to get him out right away. Nick stays behind alone and decides to recover the hard drive himself. Using an axe, he breaks open the server storage and finally gets the drive out. After they examine the recovered drive, they realize half the data was damaged by radiation. Because of that, the information can't be fully restored. Nick then asks Carol, "Whenever I hack banks, I always erase my code. So how were you able to recover mine?" Carol tells him the NSA has a software program called Black Widow, and they used that to recover his code. But she also says she doesn't know if the US government will let them use it on a case involving China. Even so, she says she'll try. Carol calls an NSA agent and asks for access to Black Widow. The agent refuses and says recovering the code without that software is impossible. Nick then says he can get access by hacking into Black Widow himself. Carol is stunned. She warns him that it's incredibly dangerous and says that if the NSA finds out, they won't let him live. Nick says they have no other choice. Then he tells her to give him the name of a senior officer so he can use that to get into the system. Using the name of a senior officer named Richard, Nick triggers Black Widow to change his password. The moment Richard changes it, Nick gets the new password. He logs in and starts recovering the hacker's code. Once the code is recovered, Nick gets an IP address. Tracing it leads him to Jakarta, but the hacker's site is protected so heavily that he still can't access it directly. Then Leanne checks the transaction ID and discovers the hacker made multiple payments payments to a satellite company to buy a satellite image of a location in Malaysia. Hearing that, Nick gets confused. He can't figure out why the hacker would want a photo of that place. At the same time, the NSA discovers that Black Widow has been accessed. They report it to Alex's senior officer. The officer tells Alex he took a massive risk by bringing Nick onto the team, and he doesn't want their reputation damaged in front of the NSA. He orders Alex to hand Nick over to the Americans immediately and continue the case without him. Alex secretly sends Leanne a message telling her to run with Nick. Meanwhile, Henry angrily calls Carol and tells her Nick has to be taken off the case. Later, Alex meets Nick and Leanne at a hidden location. He tells them he's not turning Nick over to the Americans, but Carol and Henry will definitely try to find them, so the best move is for them to go to Jakarta separately and meet there. But the second Nick and Leanne step out of the car, Kassar suddenly fires a rocket launcher and blows up Alex's car. Leanne collapses in tears as she watches her brother die in front of her. Around the same time, Carol reaches the scene, and a gunfight breaks out with Kassar. During that shootout, Carol is hit and dies on the spot. Seeing all this, Nick escapes with Leanne. After that, they meet a mechanic who helps remove the tracking device from Nick's leg. Leanne also gets fake passports arranged for both of them. Then they board a private jet and fly to Jakarta. They head to the suspicious location, and when they get there, they discover it's a tin mining area. At that point, Nick finally understands the hackers' full plan. The attack on the Hong Kong power plant was mainly a test to see whether anyone could track them. That blast was just a test run. Their real plan is to hack the power plant in this area too. After that, they want to destroy the biggest nearby dam, which would flood all the tin mines. That would create a huge shortage of tin in the market and send the price soaring. The hackers plan to put the stolen $74 million into tin shares first. Then, once the price spikes, they'll make an enormous profit overnight. Nick sneaks into a tin mining office and secretly steals important data. After checking what he stole, he discovers the hackers deposited the money in a local bank. Nick sends Leanne to that bank. Once there, Leanne tells a bank employee she has an important meeting but her pen drive isn't working. She asks if he can plug it into the system and check it for her. The employee connects the pen drive to the computer. The second he does, Nick gets full control of the bank server. He transfers the hackers $74 million from that bank into a Swiss bank account. Then he leaves a message for Kassar that says, "If you want your money back, contact me." Later, Kassar calls. Nick tells him, "I know you have a boss, and if you want your money back, you'll let me speak to him." Kassar then connects him to his boss, Tran. Tran asks what Nick wants. Nick says he wants a share in the project they're about to pull off. Tran tells him that's fine, and says he's willing to give him a share, but first he wants to meet him in person. Nick agrees, but he already knows Tran has no intention of sharing anything and will try to betray him. So Nick goes to the meeting ready for exactly that. When Nick arrives, Kassar points a gun at him. Kassar is the same man who killed Alex, Nick's best friend. Nick fights back and kills Kassar to avenge Alex. Right after that, a heavy gunfight erupts. Nick gets shot several times, but he survives because he's wearing a bulletproof vest. Even then, he still manages to take out most of the attackers. Then Tran, the mastermind behind everything, finally appears. During the confrontation, he manages to wound Nick, but in the end, Nick kills Tran too, and gets out alive. Later, Nick makes it back to Leanne, the woman he loves. Leanne treats his wounds. After he recovers, the two of them decide to leave the country. They go to an unknown place where the authorities won't be able to find them easily. Nick still has the $74 million sitting in his Swiss bank account, which means he now has more than enough money to live in comfort. And that's where the story ends.